Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Diversity Through Cuisine. My name is Kavita Sao, and I have with me Samantha Richardson. Today, we are making Pho Ga. I'm going to have Sam introduce herself to you, and we'll go from there. Hi, Sam.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, of course.
You want to tell us a little bit about you?
Here is my home. So I woke up here, so I'm good. All right, hi everyone. I'm Samantha Richardson, and today I'm going to be making Pho Ga, which is a Vietnamese dish, and I think a lot of you have probably heard of the beef version, which is Pho Bo, but not a lot of people know about this other more delicate version. Pho Bo, you know, it's a hearty soup. It's what Vietnam is known for. I know it's gotten really popular over the past few years, which is awesome because growing up, my mom is from Vietnam. We had a Vietnamese restaurant. No one knew what it was. So I could never really share it with my friends. Now that I'm older and I'm an adult and I see all these young people eating pho, I'm like so happy. Like it just makes me so happy that it's really, really popular. So I wanted to show you the Pho Ga version because you can find a beef version on YouTube anywhere. They're all good. They're all legit. Just make sure the person's like Vietnamese. But you know, it's good stuff. And the chicken is lighter. It's got a lighter texture to it, and it's actually faster to make. So here we go. Anything else?
All right. Nope.
Okay.
Let's go. Walk me through this because I've never done this before.
All right. So I am going to share in the chat the website. Okay, before I share the website, Kavita, you know that if you ask your mom for a recipe, there's no actual recipe for anything. It's like you put a little bit of this, you put a little bit of that. And so I had to go online and say, okay, is there a recipe for this that I can share with people? And there is. Andrea Nguyen, she's a pretty famous Vietnamese chef. I'm going to share her recipe. This is not exactly the same, but it's fairly similar. So if you want to go by that, you can go by that. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need a whole chicken. And I have my chicken here. I'm going to just tilt my laptop. I'm only touching the chicken with one hand. So chicken is a very, I don't want to say lethal, but it's a very delicate, or we'll say lethal, meat to deal with because of all the bacteria and stuff. So you want to make sure that you don't splatter it anywhere. I know old recipes used to call for it to be rinsed. You don't want to rinse the chicken because that splatter from the water hitting the chicken actually contaminates your kitchen even more. So I've got my chicken, I've got my whole chicken, and I actually cut it into pieces, okay? So if you're a vegetarian or vegan and this is squeamish for you, I apologize, I really do. And I know not everyone likes dealing with meat, so maybe find someone in your household who can deal with it. If you don't have anyone, just pretend you're back in your anatomy and physiology class in high school, and here we go. All right, so we've got the chicken. It's cut into pieces. I've got legs. I actually use poultry shears because of course I have them. My friends like to call me bougie. It's true. All right, so I have poultry shears. I've used these a lot. So I've got the back, the legs, I've got the whole breast with the wings still attached. And what's really important is that the bone marrow has been exposed, and that's really going to help with the broth. So it's going to deepen that flavor. You can get a chicken cut up. You could also buy split breasts. You could buy the thighs, etc. if you don't want to go through this process. Okay, it's just, I like to do things on my own. So here we go. All right, so into the pot, I'm going to put the chicken. So go ahead and put the chicken in the pot.
Okay.
And what we're going to do with it first is we're actually going to blanch it. So I'm going to cover this chicken with cold water, and then we're going to bring it to a boil and just blanch it for about 2 to 3 minutes. And that gets all of the impurities out of it. Okay. So I'm going to disappear for a second.
Okay. And I'm gonna wash my chicken hands.
All right. A little more than a second. Actually, I'm going to move to this burner because as the meme says, you have a favorite burner. It is the front right. I don't know why, but it's true. So I'm going to turn that on. Bring that up to a boil. Make sure it doesn't spill over, which you probably will. Okay. All right. So I'm going to clear this off.
Sam, you said I'm covering the chicken, right?
Yes, you want to cover the chicken. All right, just washing my hands because I touched that chicken, so make sure you wash well. Plus, you know, COVID. Okay.
Okay, my chicken is covered.
Perfect. All right, so while that chicken comes to a boil, so you got it on the stove?
Yep.
Okay, so like
turn it on
to a boil, we are going to start working with the other ingredients that go into the broth.
Okay.
Okay, so that's going to be onion and ginger.
Okay.
So let me pull this over here.
Let me get my onion and my ginger.
Yeah.
So mine is under the broiler.
Correct. Yeah. So there are a couple things you're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to char the onion and the ginger because we want to bring out that flavor. You could roast it, but that's a slightly different flavor. You really want the char on it. So most people, you know, can just use a broiler. If you have a gas stove, I'm going to show you what you can do with the gas stove if you want to do this. But if you don't feel comfortable doing it this way, by all means, please slice it up and put it under the broiler. Okay. Please don't burn down your apartments. Please don't burn down your houses. 2020 is already dealt us enough. We don't need.
Right.
All right. So,
And unfortunately, I have an electric stove, so
that's okay.
I am very jealous of your gas stove.
It is my favorite thing in my house. It is truly a wonderful thing. So I've got the ginger and I went ahead and I peeled it and I sliced it down the middle. So you'll need about a 4-inch piece of ginger. And just in case you're not sure what that looks like in the raw, you go to the store. This is ginger. Don't get the pre-packaged diced ginger. Don't do it. Unless it's pickled ginger, that's a whole different thing. But get the real ginger. So you can just use a regular peeler or you can use a paring knife to get the skin off because the skin is very delicate, it's very soft, and it'll come off easily. So once I've done that, I've also got yellow onions that I sliced up into wedges. Okay. And so once you do that, you're going to put the ginger and the onions on a baking sheet, place it under the broiler, and get a nice char on it. So let me show you how I do it with the gas stove. Okay?
Yep.
All right. Can you see that?
I see it.
Zoom.
Again, jealous of that flame.
I know, I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm going to start with the ginger just so you can see. It's a little easier. So I've got my tongs. I'm going to hold it over the flame. I've got the flame on high. You can take the grate off. I probably should have done that, but here we are. It's too late. There's no turning back. So I've got that going. And once it gets a nice brown on it, I'm going to show you up close what it should look like.
Okay.
And ginger is really important. You honestly cannot make this without the ginger. It will not taste the same. So if you can't find it, wait until you can. Let me just check this chicken really quickly. So good. And please be very, very careful with this. Use tongs. Make sure they're metal tongs. Don't use tongs with the plastic on the end. I once knew someone who was baking a cake. This was back in college. She was baking a cake and she couldn't find a metal baking pan. So she decided to use a plastic Jell-O mold. Don't.
Wow.
Person. Don't do that. Okay. I am assuming that if you are watching this, you are probably interested in cooking and you probably know this, but I just want to make sure.
So my chicken has come to a boil.
Okay, perfect. So
do I just leave it? Let it?
Yeah, so okay. So one of the reasons why we are doing the boiling chicken, and let me turn that off before I get my hair on fire, is we want to make sure that we get all of the impurities out of the chicken. And what we're going to do is we're going to now dump this water. This is not the broth.
Okay.
We're going to dump the water that the chicken's been boiling in. And you can put a colander in your sink and just dump the chicken into there and rinse any scum that has been created from the meat. It will happen. It happens with the beef too. So if you're making a beef pho, you're going to do the same thing. With the beef pho, sometimes people actually roast the bones that go into the broth. You can do that, but you really want to make sure that you get rid of any of that scum. The broth should be very clear and it should be clean. Okay.
Okay.
So once you're ready, go ahead and take that pot of chicken, dump it.
Okay.
And you're going to put the chicken back in the pot.
Okay.
And fill it with fresh water and bring it to a boil again.
Okay. And I'm covering the chicken again. Right.
You're going to cover the chicken. Yeah, you'll cover the chicken completely. So make sure it's completely covered with water. Okay, so let me check. Okay, mine is getting there too. So now I'm going to dump it.
Okay. My chicken is rinsed and I'm filling it back up.
Okay, I apologize for the empty screens, everyone. I was thoroughly. I am not Martha Stewart. I do not have a full camera crew. All right. So now I'm going to bring this to a boil again. Okay. And then I'm going to continue with the onions and the ginger. So I'll just be doing that.
All right. So mine is back on the stove.
Okay.
Ready to come to a boil again.
Okay. So I did the ginger. And let me show you some of the charred. Okay. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. And then I would do the same thing with the onions. I would just put it over the fire, let it come to a char, and then that would be the prep work for that before it goes into the broth.
Okay. Mine is out from under the broiler.
Okay, so here are my pre-charred onions. Perfect.
Okay, mine probably needs a little bit more char, or you think it's okay?
That's okay.
Okay.
Because if it gets really charred, you actually want to wash that off before you.
Okay.
So that's okay.
Even the onions and the ginger smell amazing.
I know. There are certain smells that I absolutely associate with childhood. When I smell these ingredients, I know that pho is going to be made. And Pho is probably my favorite dish in the entire world. And that sounds so cliche now, but it did not sound cliche 40 years ago. So it's absolutely my favorite dish, whether it's beef or chicken. And I honestly could eat this breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And if you go to Vietnam, people do eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like we have a lot of breakfast foods of eggs and sausage and stuff. They don't have that. It's just what noodle dish do you want this morning, or other various things.
I wish I could send the smell
I
to
know.
everybody.
I'm sorry, there's no smell-o-vision, but if you follow the recipe, go. And really quickly, while I'm waiting for that chicken to come to a boil, since this is for UCF people, there is an Asian market on this side of town. It is down Colonial, and it's called East Asian Market. I have no affiliation with them. It's just the closest market that I found that has the ingredients I'm talking about today. So it's East Asian, it's over on Colonial. Other than that, if you want to go downtown to Little Saigon, where they have those massive supermarkets, like Kavita, you had to trek down there and find these ingredients.
I did last night at 8 o'clock.
I'm so sorry.
It's all right. It's my own fault, but I did buy local, so I felt better.
That's right. Please buy local. Amazon has some of these things. They have enough money. Please buy local. So anyway, as I go through these ingredients, please know that you can find them. They're not that far away. Okay. So what we're going to do next is we're going to put the onions and the ginger into the broth with the chicken. And the chicken actually continues to cook for another 25 minutes.
Okay.
It's a misconception that you can't dry out chicken when you boil it. That is completely wrong. You can dry out chicken by boiling it. Just because you've infused it and surrounded it with hot water doesn't mean it's not going to dry out. So we will take out the chicken in the next 25 minutes or so once that reaches a boil, because you don't want the chicken to be tough. If it's tough, it will not be good at all. So please make sure that you don't overboil it. Okay, so I'm going to put the onions and the ginger into the pot with the chicken. Okay.
Got it.
And please, by all means, if you have any questions, anyone, please use the chat. I will answer the questions to the best of my ability.
I get to try and be left-handed.
My left hand is useless. It's like it doesn't exist at all.
I can do quite a few things left-handed. My dad's left-handed, so I feel like I inherited some of it.
Yeah, my daughter's left-handed. We try not to sit on that side when we sit in the booth, when we used to go to restaurants.
Yep, we have that problem too. So my parents live with me, and we normally eat on the island. And my dad has a corner that nobody can sit at, just for arm purposes. Bumping elbows while you're eating.
Yeah, it's just a practical thing. It's like, it's not personal. It's just a practical thing.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, the chat is disabled. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, you can put your questions in the question and answer section.
There we go. Perfect.
Yep. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop it in there.
And again, I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Maybe not as well as Google, but I'll try my best. Okay, so there are a few other ingredients that are going to go into this stock. Even though it's a really simple broth, we still want to make sure that we hit all the flavors. So I've got salt and sweet that's going into this. I've got literally regular salt. Okay. It's about a tablespoon, and you can add more if you need to. And again, with anything with food, you can always add it, but you can't take it out. So just kind of taste it as you go if you need to. And again, like I said, if I ever ask my mom for like an amount, she just holds her hand out and she goes, about this much.
Yep.
Yeah, what does this mean? Like, what is this? And then I know we've talked about it before, the meme where it's like, I just keep adding until my ancestors whisper to me, that's enough.
Yep.
It's true. It's so true. Okay, so another ingredient that you can also use is rock sugar. That's a pretty popular ingredient in Vietnamese cooking. I didn't have any rock sugar, and honestly, I didn't feel like buying it because I don't use it that often. So what you can substitute instead is just brown sugar. I happen to be using dark brown sugar right now. You can use light brown sugar. It's literally personal taste. So whatever you want to use, and it's a couple tablespoons. You can cut back on the sugar. If you're diabetic, don't add the sugar at all. So you can adjust, and that's the wonderful thing about this. You can adjust it as needed to fit, your needs, your personal needs. Okay. Then the third thing I'm going to add, this is called fish sauce. So fish sauce is uniquely Asian, I believe, and Vietnam is very popular for its fish sauce. Like there are islands that make bottles of fish sauce, and I mean they're essentially breweries because you are brewing this for months at a time, like a wine or a whiskey or anything like that. It's pungent, like the strong smell. So you want to be really careful with your bottle. You want to make sure, because we are all clumsy sometimes, that if you were to ever break anything in your kitchen, if anything were to ever slip out of your hands, it is not your glass bottle. You do not want that to happen. No. All right. So it's a couple tablespoons of fish sauce, and you can adjust it as you want to. When we actually put all of this together in the bowl to eat, you can add fish sauce to it because it's very salty, and it gives it umami flavor. So it gives it the whole mouth feeling. Okay. So we're going to put these three things into the broth and kind of just gently stir it in around the chicken. Okay. Again, be very careful with that fish sauce.
I went with the brown sugar as well. They did have the rock sugar, but I didn't want to buy a whole package when I wasn't sure if I was going to use it for anything else.
Exactly. Like I said, I don't really use it for anything else, so I just use the brown sugar. And everyone seems to have brown sugar, especially around the holidays. I bake a lot. You know that. You follow my Instagram. So I am constantly baking, so I always have brown sugar. And then it's really useful around the holidays because it goes on sale. And I love a sale.
Yeah, I bake every weekend, and brown sugar is a staple in my house.
Yep.
All right. My ingredients are in.
Perfect. So I'm just kind of moving that around. Okay. So even though we blanched this chicken for a few minutes and got the majority of those impurities out, it's not a perfect process. So during the cooking, more may come to the surface. So what you're going to do is, if you have a little sieve, I literally never know how to pronounce that word, but I have one.
Excuse me. Solicitor Ferguson said that she could not connect at the beginning. How much chicken or beef are you using? I haven't gotten the recipe again. I'm gonna say.
Wait, how much what?
Chicken or beef are you using?
Oh, I'm using one whole chicken.
I'm gonna send the recipe again. Just
okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so I've got this little sieve. So if you see any other kinds of impurities start to bubble up, you're just gonna kind of scoop it off, okay? All right, so. There we go. You can see it. Okay. All right. So then this is like the 10th thing. So the next thing we're going to do, oh, perfect. Awesome. Your cameraman is helping. Okay. So what you went to the store for? Well, you went to the store for a couple things. But one of the things that you went to the store for was this packet of seasoning.
Yep. I have mine.
Perfect. And again, this is available on Amazon, but I really implore you to support local businesses, especially right now, and please buy local. It's readily available. If you go into the spices section, you will see it. It is a package of every spice that you will need for this soup. And on the back has the ingredients. I don't know if you can see them, but it is anise seed, cinnamon, fennel seed, clove, and coriander seed. Okay. So if you really can't find this, you can actually go to Publix and buy the individual spices. Most Publixes have them, and you can kind of put it together yourself. If you're missing one, it's okay. All right. So one of the reasons why I absolutely love this package, though, is because it comes, so I'm going to open it. It comes with a little sachet, there you go, a little cotton baggie. So place that aside. Okay. Put the little baggie aside. We're going to come back to that. And I'm going to take, you can use a nonstick skillet. You can use just a regular skillet, whatever you want to use. Perfect. We're not adding oil to this. Don't add oil to this. Okay. We're going to heat this up, and that's going to bring out more flavor. See the pattern here? That's going to bring out more flavor for the actual spices. Okay.
And I'm using all of the spices.
Yes, use all the spices. So put the whole packet in there. It is portioned out. It is portioned out just so it's the correct amount. So if you're making beef pho, you would do the same thing. This is the exact same packet that you would use for the beef pho. A couple things that you could also add to the stock if you're making beef pho is whole carrots. So about 2 to 3 whole carrots and daikon. Daikon is a Japanese radish. So you would use 1 daikon, 2 to 3 carrots. But again, the beef pho, it's going to be a heartier flavor. So it can take that. You're not going to want to do that with the chicken pho because the chicken pho is more delicate. So don't add the carrots, don't add the daikon. Okay, but if you do you can use that. And some people don't add it, but you really should. And one thing that I want to mention is this stock is just like any other stock. You are literally making the stock or the broth, and that is all you will consume other than the actual chicken meat from that broth. I've seen people boil the carrots, boil the onions, and then place that in their bowl. Don't do that, okay? That needs to be discarded. It's done. It's over. So even if you were to make just like a regular chicken stock, one of my favorite people, Ina Garten, love her, love the Barefoot Contessa. She has a great recipe for chicken stock, and she puts whole garlic and celery and carrots and the chickens and whatever else in there. And then she strains it, and all of those vegetables are done. So it's just mush at that point. All the flavors already been imparted into the broth. So get rid of that. Okay. So you don't want to put any of that into the bowl. I've seen people do it. I just want to let you know not to do that. Okay. All right. So I'm heating up this pan, and I've got the spices in there, and you want to make sure you don't burn it. So you're just toasting it really. Okay. And again, you're just doing it to get those flavors in there. Get my other tongs. And you'll see that, you've got whole seeds in there. You don't want to crack those open. You don't want to break them. This is the star anise seed. And again, the flavors really come from this, and the smell is just, it's childhood for me. Like I said, I grew up in a Vietnamese restaurant. And pho was the most popular dish on that menu.
So some of the ingredients in this packet is stuff that we use in Indian cooking as well. So the cloves is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
So I can that definitely brings me back.
And that's honestly, I mean, I love approaching a culture through food. And one of the things that I really enjoy is looking at the commonalities between cultures when it comes to food. And, you know, on Netflix, you've got a great show called Ugly Delicious. David Chang, he does a great job of connecting various cultures through food, examining like different cultures that have a dumpling. Doesn't matter what's in the dumpling, but a dumpling exists in the majority of cultures. Or, you know, various breads or noodles. I mean, just the noodle dishes alone. Vietnamese cooking also has a large influence from the French culture because of, you know, colonialism, but they left a really great impact on the food. And there's a great Vietnamese sandwich called a banh mi, and it's on a baguette. Okay, so once that's toasted, that should be good. Turn that off. And this is where you're gonna use your little baggie.
Okay.
And in French cooking, you have a bouquet garnier, which is basically all the herbs are tied together in a little bunch. And sometimes put them in cheesecloth or a little baggie like this, because you want to have the flavor in the stock, but you don't want to go through the trouble of trying to take all of that out when you're done.
Yes.
Don't burn yourself.
I can imagine having to fish out those fennel seeds.
Yeah, I've done that. I've tried it that way. It was a poor decision. So what I actually like to do is I like to take the tongs and just pick up the large pieces and get those in the bag. And then I use a funnel. So this is actually a funnel for when I make jams and I can them, because again, I do things like that. But you can use a regular funnel, and I just kind of like pour it.
Oh, I got mine in there.
Perfect. Let's see if I can do this without making a mess or without burning myself. All right. Okay, so once it's in, I'm gonna cinch that up. Of course, the other one worked better. What is happening right now? Okay. Okay, so cinch that up and just kind of tie it so it doesn't undo itself.
Okay.
Cooking.
It smells so good.
Good, I'm glad. And, you know, the thing is, of course I eat pho when I go to different restaurants, but I'm always comparing. Like, does this taste like my mom's? What's the broth taste like? So I'm very, very particular about where I'll eat. Okay, so we're going to take this and we're going to put it into the broth and make sure it's completely covered. And you can use the extra string and just kind of tie it around the handle loosely, not too tightly.
I just covered mine in there.
Perfect. Okay, so I see some, I hate using the word scum, but that's what they call it. So I see some chicken scum at the top of it, and I'm going to go ahead and scoop some of that off. Get my stuff.
I guess my chicken didn't have as much scum since I used the split breast.
Yeah, if you just use the split breast and not the legs and the thighs and all that other stuff, it's going to be a little easier. Okay. All right, so we're going to let that continue cooking. And while this is cooking, I'm going to show you all of the vegetables really that you're going to cut up to put on top of the finished bowl. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Just scoot this back over here. Okay, so you've got a few ingredients. The majority of them are very familiar to people. I think only one of them would be unfamiliar to most, but the cousin of it, very, very familiar. So what you want is this Thai basil, or it's also called purple basil. And you can get this at an Asian food store. If you cannot find this, do not substitute the Italian basil. The Italian basil is way too sweet. It's not going to have the same flavor. This has more of a licorice flavor to it. So you want the Thai basil, and then you also want some cilantro. And then you're going to want some green onions, or some people call them scallions, okay, but green onions. And you're also going to want some lime, and you want that yellow onion again, because even though the yellow onion is in the broth, you're also going to use it as a topping, okay?
Okay.
So let me show you how you're gonna prep this. The limes, that's easy. You're just gonna cut the limes into wedges. So I cut it in half. Yeah, cut these into wedges, about that big. Okay, put that to the side. The cilantro. You can honestly just cut the cilantro with the stems, or you can get all fancy and just pull the leaves off. If you go to a nice restaurant, they'll probably pull the leaves off. But usually at home, I just chop it, just like my parsley. For this demonstration, I will pull the leaves off, just for funsies.
I'm not a fan of the stems because it's so, I guess, hard.
Yeah, it is. And I know some people are allergic to cilantro. It is a real thing. It tastes like soap to
Thankfully, I'm not one of them.
I know, neither am I. I love cilantro. But if it tastes like soap to you, leave the cilantro out. It's not worth it. Don't do it.
Wendy Howard asked, and I quote, "Why do you chop off the ends of the limes?"
Just a personal thing. I chop off the ends of the limes because my mom did it.
That makes so much sense.
I literally have no other reason other than my mom did it. So I hope that suffices. Hi, Wendy. That's my supervisor.
Oh. Hi,
Okay.
Wendy. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for letting Sam be here with us today.
Yes, she is wonderful. She's also my friend. So, okay. So I've got the onion, and you want to slice the onions very thinly. You do not want chunky onion in your finished product. So I'm slicing them very thinly. I have finished sliced onions that I will show you. I'm not looking at the screen because I'm making sure I don't cut my fingers.
You just don't want us to see you crying.
That's right. Thankfully, the only time I've ever cut my hand is on one of those kitchen mandolins because I didn't use the guard.
Oh, those are, yeah.
And it got away from me. It hurt. It was painful. Actually, here's the thing. It didn't hurt. I didn't feel something. And that's when I knew it was bad because what I did feel was something I had never felt before. And I immediately knew this is hospital worthy.
Oh, wow.
But I'm in good company. Everyone else has done it.
Sorry, an anonymous attendee said, and I quote, "Mung bean sprouts is good to top your pho too."
Yes. Mung bean sprouts are very, very good to top your pho. The majority of people do top it. I am leaving them out only because Out of everything in this world, it is the only thing I can't actually eat, oddly enough. So my entire family loves mung bean sprouts. My mom always has it as an accompaniment. If you go to a restaurant, you will always have it, and they tell me how delicious it is. For some reason, kind of like the cilantro, it tastes very different to me. It's very, I don't know, it's a weird thing. It does not taste the same to me as it tastes to everybody else in this world. And I don't know why. And I'm not a picky eater by any means. And people have tried to sneak into my food and think, you know, oh, it's just a mental thing. It's not. But I do suggest you putting it on your soup. If you've never had it, you can also buy that in the Asian food store, and it's really good. Okay, so with the green onion, again, okay, you're gonna cut off the roots there, and you want them thinly sliced, and you're really just using the white parts and the light green parts, okay? So kind of slicing those. I'm looking at the time, and I just want to make sure I get all of this done before our time is up. Okay, so just put that to the side. When I get to the Thai basil, it's kind of like Italian basil. You know, all my Italian friends, they don't slice their basil. They tear it, and I do the same thing. So I just pull the leaves off. You can slice it if you want to. It's just a personal thing for me, but because I like the taste of this, I want it in big pieces, so I just tear it. So I take it off of the stems, and then I just kind of tear it. You can see, okay? So I've got my plate full of stuff. I'll show you in just a second. Let me put this off to the side. Okay. So what you would usually do is you would have all of this on a plate. You could do a larger plate. I just did a small plate this time, so that once everyone sits down with their bowls of pho, they can top it with whatever they want to top it with. Okay. So I've got the thinly sliced onions, green onions, the lime wedge. You only want to squeeze one lime wedge in it, because if you do too much, the flavor is going to be overpowering. Okay.
Makes sense.
Find that nice balance of sour and sweet and salty. And then again, the fish sauce adds that umami-ness to it. You've got the cilantro and the basil, okay?
And I also have some chilies that I.
Oh yes, I forgot my chilies. Okay, no, let me grab them. They're in the fridge. How could I forget? I hope my mom isn't watching. All right, so I have, these are Thai chili peppers. These are actually kind of difficult to find. So if you can't find these, just use jalapenos, very thinly sliced. In fact, some of the Vietnamese restaurants I've been to downtown, they use jalapeno peppers because those are more readily available. So they're just easy to find, okay? Okay, so behind me, I actually started boiling some water just to get some hot water, because now we're going to prep the noodles. So you want to get these rice stick noodles. There are various brands. This just happened to be the brand that I picked up. And they vary in size. Yeah, that's fine. You don't want vermicelli. You don't want bean thread. You don't want it super thin. There are many other types of Vietnamese soups like bun ba wai and ho tio. They have different kinds of noodles. You want the pack that says pho on it. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to open it.
So is yours fresh noodles or I got the fresh. That's what the guy at the store told me to get.
Yeah, I'm using the dried.
Okay.
I've had the fresh before. My mom's used the fresh. Honestly, I use the dry so much, I don't know how to prep the fresh.
He said just hot water, bring it to a boil.
Okay, so
that's what it says on here too. 5 to 10 seconds.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So what I do is I just take them and I put them in, I'm just using a 13x9 glass baking dish, AKA my lasagna dish. And I'm just putting them in there and I'm heating up some water right now and I'm gonna pour it over the noodles and they're gonna soften, but they won't be completely ready for the bowl yet. You actually have to soften them some more and I'll go over that once these are soft. Okay, my chicken is boiling away and I actually think it might be time to take it out. So
Okay.
I'm gonna just check it really quickly. Okay, so I'm gonna show you. There it is, boiling away. So what I'll do is I'll get a large bowl and I'm gonna transfer the chicken from that broth into the large bowl and set it aside. Very short, so it takes a lot to reach into my cabinets. And when you transfer the chicken, make sure you are not grabbing the onions and you're not grabbing the ginger. It needs to stay in there. And don't burn yourself. Make sure you get all the liquid off of the chicken before you really take it out. Okay, so the chicken is out, steaming hot, and I'm actually going to let that cool down, and the broth is going to cook for about another hour and a half. I know we don't have an hour and a half left, so I actually prepared some this morning so I can show you how to put it in the bowl, okay? My family is going to be eating pho for days.
So's mine.
Which, you know, is great for this really cold October day in Florida.
Right?
Kidding. Okay. So the water's come to a boil. So did you submerge your noodles in hot water?
Not yet.
Okay. I'm waiting for my water to heat up.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my water to boil.
I'm just going to show you the bowls. They're my pho bowls because you just have to have a special bowl. You don't have to, but like every house that makes pho, you have the pho bowls, varying sizes, but you want a large bowl, and it's because there's so much broth that goes with it. So make sure you have a nice sized bowl on hand. I've known people who have used their mixing bowls when they've run short. Whatever you need to use, do what you got to do. But here is the pho bowl. Okay. So I'm going to pour the water on the noodles.
I'm going to have you assemble yours because my broth needs to continue cooking.
Correct. Yeah. I've got a pot that's been going since this morning. All right. So I'm pouring the water over the noodles. And honestly, this is just to soften them. And again, they will not be completely done yet. So they have to sit in the water for just a few minutes to soften. And traditionally, what people do, so if you were to go to a soup, like a stall, basically, if you go to Vietnam and you go down a street full of a bunch of stalls, like the one stall makes the one type of soup. And you basically sit down and that's what they bring you. So traditionally what they do is they take the softened noodles and they will have boiling water on the stove and they'll put just a serving size of noodles into a strainer, dip the noodles in that hot water, to cook them even more and then put them in the bowl and then top it with everything. Because we have a microwave, I'm going to show you how to do it with a microwave. It's a cheat, but I'm okay with that. I'm going to turn this down also so it simmers and is not boiling for an hour and a half. Okay. So we've got these noodles softening. And again, I chose really thin noodles this time. If I eat a beef pho, I actually like the really wide noodles, which my mom always says I'm a little kid like that, because apparently little kids like the wide noodles, which is weird because my kids don't like the wide noodles. But I chose the thinner noodles for the chicken one because the chicken pho is, again, much more delicate than the beef one. So as these soften, I'm going to go over a couple of the differences with the meat. If you were making a beef pho, in addition to the bones and the cuts of beef that you put in the stock, for the topping, you would actually buy beef, like a tri-tip, and you would cut it into long, narrow sections. And then you would thinly slice that meat. And there's a trick to get it thinly sliced. What my mom actually does is she wraps those narrow sections in plastic wrap, puts them in the freezer just long enough to kind of make them harden, but not too long that they're frozen solid. And then she takes her knife, and it's always a cleaver because she only uses a cleaver for everything. And then she takes her knife and she thinly slices the beef. So you want that beef thinly sliced. You do not want chunks of beef. It's not a stew. Because what you would do is you would actually take that beef and place it raw on the noodles. And then the hot broth that you spoon over the noodles and over the beef cooks it. So it's almost like a fondue. I know it kind of freaks some people out, but if you're okay with the communal fondue, you should be okay with the thinly sliced beef. All right. So, if you do take out for pho, it'll usually have something written there that says, hey, this takeout contains raw ingredients and you need to be aware of that. And thankfully, it's beef, it's not chicken. Like I said, you need to be really careful with the chicken. The chicken you want cooked. You don't mess around with raw chicken. Okay. So you can see that my noodles are getting softer. So they're getting there. We've got 5 minutes left. So I'm going to rush through some of this. I would actually let them sit a little longer, but that's okay. I'm just going to show you. So I put some of the noodles in here, and I'm just going to put them in the microwave for about 30 seconds. And that 30 seconds should soften the noodles. So let me pull my other finished block over here. Okay. So I've got my finished broth, and move the camera so you can see it. That's been stewing. So what I would do is I would actually scoop out all of the ginger and the onions until the entire stock is clear. Okay, so take all of that out. And this has been simmering. Again, it's not been boiling, it's been simmering. So if I had more time, I would do it to its completion. All right, the noodles softened even more. So now, I just burned myself. So now, I also earlier took some of the chicken that I had cooked and I shredded it by hand instead of by knife. So you're just gonna peel that chicken off. So I'm gonna take the chicken, I'm gonna place it on top of the noodles. And then I'm going to top it with some of the green onions. some of the slices of regular onion, cilantro, I've got the basil, breaking that up. And then I would take the ladle and just ladle it over the noodles and the chicken and all the vegetables, and those toppings are going to soften even more once this hot broth hits. And you want to make sure that the broth is hot, especially if you're doing the beef pho. You want to make sure that broth is hot so that it cooks that thinly sliced beef. Can you see that? Okay, so in terms of flavor, I've got a couple things. Traditionally, like if you were to go to Vietnam, they wouldn't necessarily put these in there, but in the US, we do often put these condiments in there. So this is hoisin sauce. So you can put the hoisin sauce in there. And then this has become super popular in the past 10 years, sriracha, everyone's favorite sriracha. So nearly everyone has a recipe where they use sriracha. This is an absolute American thing. This is manufactured in California, just like the fortune cookie. It is not from any particular Asian country, but it is delicious. So if you want to heat up your soup, go ahead and add the sriracha. And then you would also squeeze a little lime into it. And then you would also maybe add a little more fish sauce if you want to. I always suggest people, taste it first. This is a really great soup spoon. This is what you need to use when you're eating pho. So basically, you mix those things together. People are going to call me out because I didn't actually add the hoisin sauce. That's fine. So I'd add a little bit more. And again, with the flavor, you can add more, but you can't take it out. And then typically, I just take the noodles, kind of place it into the spoon, fill it with the broth. I'm not going to eat on camera, but that's typically what I would do. Okay?
First, let me say that looks amazing. And Diane Davanzo, I hope I'm spelling it correctly, but she asked, and I quote, "Can this recipe be adapted to vegan or plant-based bowl?"
Yes, I'm so glad you asked that. I actually meant to mention this because some dear friends of mine are vegan and they do love pho. So I found a vegan pho recipe, and essentially what they use instead of a meat product, they use enriched yeast, because the thing about pho is that it has a very velvety texture to the broth. So the enriched yeast is going to help create that velvety texture. So you would increase, or you would substitute the meat with more vegetables. So you could do that Japanese daikon radish, you could do the carrots, and that's gonna help with that flavor profile, but you would also use enriched yeast. I don't have the recipe on hand, but if you Google it, there is a vegan recipe.
Sam, I was saying I had to eat on camera yesterday. I think you can give it a taste and tell us how that tastes.
Okay, I'm gonna burn myself, but that's okay.
Yeah, and an anonymous attendee said that that person usually include tofu for vegan food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can use tofu. Okay, it's so good. I didn't really eat.
I can't wait.
When you cook all day, you're like, I can't eat, but this is actually really good. And I have dinner done, so I'm good to go.
There you go. Thank you for doing this with me today. I really appreciate it. I've told you my horror story about, how terrible my taste of pho was. So I'm excited to try this. Hopefully it's better. I followed your instructions to a T, so I will cross my fingers. I will let you all know how it tastes tomorrow when I join you again at 12 o'clock, where I will be cooking Trini curry chicken. I had a request from someone that I make curry crab. If I can find crab, I may also add that to the mix, but I'm not sure yet. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Please, thank you, Sam. Please join us this afternoon for all of our programming, especially Matters of Diversity with Dr. B. He has President Alexander Cartwright, and I'm very excited about that. Hope to see you all soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.